Okay, so anyway, if we're gonna design this, if we take this Scorpion as a baseline, the question from a game mechanics perspective is what can we give the Scorpion, and how would that change the way players interact? Let's continue to assume level 1 players, right? So you don't have a ton of like mechanical feature tools at your disposal.
Hmm.
So how can we change the Scorpion to be just like way more interesting to fight against? Let's give it something that players can like respond to in some way.
Mm,
Uh,
my first thought is maybe less HP or like lower the AC just by like one or two, maybe. But
I think
AC's
the
Does
H.
that actually does that give the player new decisions?
no, I'm trying to think of like
no.
new decisions.
I think. I mean, multi attack. It's fine. uh,
Could we block with a
Maybe
shield and stuff like that?
you could give it some sort of I don't know, does this have any weakness? If you knew there was a weakness, you could make that decision. Or maybe
That's
Well,
the
true.
okay.
weakness.
Play that out
Give
in your
weakness.
head. How does that play out?
Okay, let's say some creature has a weakness to melee attacks. Do you make the
Okay.
decision to get close to? Do you make the decision to get close to melee, or do you keep back and use range attacks if you have any?
And how does that actually play out?
Well, I imagine that to balance everything, an enemy that's weak to melee would
No, no,
have
no.
strong
No, I mean
melee attacks.
take take a player. Like you're a player in that game against that monster. What do you do?
And he has a weakness
I
to it.
I'm level 1, so I'm probably gonna play it safe and not go for the weakness with melee and stay back and use range attacks.
Why?
Because I would rather chip away at it than risk to have a higher chance of dying.
Okay, what if you're the paladin?
I just go up there and attack
I
him.
don't know. I don't know what a paladin does.
I just walk up to it and just like attack it with a sword because it's weakness to melee.
So is anybody really
Okay.
making different decisions here?
No, not really. No.
Yeah, I would. I think it's not maybe a different decision. It's the decision to range or melee. It just maybe a more. I guess it's not a new decision. That's just more.
But it's more the question of okay, has a weakness to melee. Does this make someone make not only a decision they wouldn't have otherwise made, but create a tension in the decision where they actually like
Hmm.
maybe they make just different decisions from round to round during the combat? Or is it just going to be like, oh, things that are weak to melee, I will always use my sword on?
I
Hmm.
would say, at least for me, if it was the case and I knew that there was something weak to melee, but I'm also trying to be playing it safe, I'd
I
probably try and sneak up on it to perform a sneak attack.
That's
Because
what I would do.
There we
I'd
I'd
still be
stealth
go.
doing
There we
rogue.
melee
go.
damage, but I'd also have an advantage because I'd be pulling off a sneak attack. If I do pull off the sneak attack, I would it would be weak to melee, but I would also have an advantage.
Okay, so you do. Let's say you do that. Now the combat starts.
Hmm.
Let me
You
just.
can't really do that a second time.
Yeah, no,
No.
you can't really do it a second time, but there would still be the weakness to melee. So
So how can we make
if
some
it's still
tension?
weak to melee and
There's
if I'm near it,
the
I
idea
feel
was
like
basically we want the tension to be as a player, it would be nice to be able to get some melee hits off for bonus damage or whatever, but getting in melee range is a risk. But we need to make that risk something that actually makes players like change what they're doing for some reason. So what could that risk be? What could we make? Because this is what the mechanic design would be, right? What mechanic do we design to make it so that that tension exists?
You would like okay. Give me a second.
Is multi attack infinite? Like he can keep doing it?
Yeah, multi-attack is there because of something called action economy. In tabletop
Okay.
games like this, action economy basically means the more things that you can do on your turn, you become sort of exponentially more powerful as a group. So in order to keep low-level players from completely swarming monsters in like a
I
4v1
see.
scenario, it has multiple hits so that it can dish out damage across.
I see. I see. Um.
Using abilities like up close, like kind of like multi-hit or like uh acid breath or whatever. Like there's opportunities to use it up closer to get like better chance at hitting them with it.
Sure, but why would you ever not do that?
When you forget about it, because I always forget I have breath weapons.
Right, but this is no. This is the thing. We need to build a mechanic that makes it so that there's a good reason to do it and also a good reason to not do it. That's how we're going to create that tension, right?
Maybe give him like a, like a something like maybe like he can escape in the burrow, but that'll give him like he needs to like do like maybe one turn before he can like go down or something. That way we get an opportunity attack.
Or he's in the
You could
air.
say,
If that makes
or
sense.
or something. I guess in the sense that like the enemy would get a advantage if you're close to them.
Okay, so we have two ideas here. One, enemy could have an advantage of some kind when you're close to them. Two, it could have some kind of burrow thing so that you get op attacks. So again,
Or he's in the air.
Or something that'll like maybe like a charge attack on that, or I don't know.
okay, you know what? Actually, let's use the in the air example. Let's say he can fly.
Hmm.
But you have a big it has a big weakness to melee attacks for whatever reason.
Hmm.
What as a player, let's say you're fighting that creature as a player. What do you want to do?
Knock him out there.
Find a way to down him.
Knock him out.
So
Get him out of
so
the
what
sky.
have we done so far? The design isn't done, but what have we done so far? We've given you a reason to want to we've given you
Hit.
an incentive. Hit him with melee. It's good. And we took the idea that that's very straightforward. And we said, but there's this complication.
Hmm.
Complication is that
air.
he's flying. So the
Yeah.
easiest thing to do now is to just shoot him. But he's got a bunch of HP. Maybe the advantage is that in melee he has like significantly reduced AC. Maybe that's what it is, right? He has like 19 AC if he's flying, but if you're melee range, he has 14.
Another thing you could try to do is see if you could like attach a rope to it to try to bring him down, something like that.
Well, okay,
lasso
so
it.
from the perspective of designing this thing, now we have to go.
Yeah.
All right. That means the players are going to want to bring it down. So what
Mhm.
kind of gameplay do we want to incentivize here now?
Attaching it with
javelin
either
to-
long
Because
range.
what we make work is the gameplay that gets incentivized, and that's the things that players will do, right?
Hmm.
So what do we want to make work?
Also be like
There's a
the
lot of things you can
question-
make work.
Okay.
But
We-
for
I
example,
I was gonna
let's
say.
let's say we wanted to incentivize like cooperative gameplay.
Hmm.
How can we make it so that it
Mhm.
requires teamwork to get the creature out of the sky?
Someone-
There's stuff placed around and you have to stop them. Like one person has to be at this place, one person has to be at that place, and then like it just crumbles down. And like if you destroy whatever, like
Maybe
Like-
for some reason.
Like,
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
like a pillar. Like you have to destroy a pillar for it to like for him to come down and something like that.
There should be some kind of like environmental positional thing, sure.
Maybe if it needs to be a teamwork thing, for some gameplay mechanic or gameplay reason, both the wings have to be shot at the same time, and if they're shot at 2 different times, he can recover before he hits the ground or something.
Okay, so there's a mechanic that you could do. You can make it so that it has wings, and in order to bring it down, you have to play Monster Hunter basically for a minute,
Yeah.
and bring it down. This is the thing. there's something. This is actually exactly what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about like just when you have an idea, you have something you're trying to create. You can just steal stuff. Oh, well, Monster has a bunch of stuff like that. Dragon's Dogma has similar things. Okay, they have like we could use like localized damage like on the wings. So maybe the wings have like separate hit points or something. There's like wings have a certain amount of hit points and they recover hit points after a minute, but the creature has to be on the ground to recover those hit points. And maybe they're very low hit points, so that as long as you're attacking, maybe they at the start of the creature's turn. Here it is. So here's like a D&D mechanic, the way that you would maybe put this in 5th edition. At the start of a creature's turn, its wings fully recover its hit points. If both wings are at 0 hit points, it begins falling at a certain rate of speed.
Okay.
So that if you attack one, because the mechanic requires that both wings are at 0 HP for it to fall, and because it recovers hit points at the start of each of its turns, that means that players have essentially 1 round to do sufficient damage to both wings.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of what I thought.
And at a low level, because players only really have 1 action, pretty much requires that they're coordinating. I hit the left wing, you hit the right wing, right? Or whatever. If you hit the right wing, I'll now hit the left wing. So now I'm making a decision on targeting based on what you did. Not a huge one. It's not like a major decision, but there's some interaction there between me and my party members. And then the melee characters are like trying to position in anticipation of it falling. Right? Okay, now we've like pushed through this kind of interesting mechanic for an encounter. And you could probably see, as you play that out in your head, you could probably see how, at least for a couple of rounds, that's quite interesting, because you have these like sub goals that you're trying to accomplish as you go, right? So now the last questions would be, how do we, not unimportant at all, but we're kind of glossing over them because this is more gameplay feedback stuff. How do we communicate that to the players so that they understand? Because obviously if the players don't understand how that works, then they're not making any of those decisions, right? They're not gonna make the decisions to coordinate left wing, right wing, wait for it to come down if they don't understand that that's how any of it works. So you have to.
You could give like some sort of hints to when they're like they come across the enemy. You could give some sort of hints to like kind of like hint towards like you could do this, take it down.
I know.
The thing is do hit
on
one wing. Well, no, that's not cooperation, is it? Hitting one wing, because in technicality, what can fly with one wing? Right? So if you hit one wing, it should fall down no matter what.
Magical griffins. It's D&D.
Yeah, using wind to keep itself up, like type stuff.
I don't know how much world building. I don't know how much world building we're allowed to put in this encounter. But what I'm thinking back to that Zelda gameplay we saw. You could have some. I know Dungeons & Dragons is not on a screen; it doesn't have a UI, but there could be some element that would show that the wings have to go down if it was a game. Just thinking of this encounter from a game perspective.
There's a lot of ways that we could do this. In fact, we don't even have to, and we're probably going to kind of gloss over this for our purposes here, because that way we can focus on the specific mechanic that we're designing. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways we can do this. We could make it so that like there are, if players end up doing like if the players are given a target and it's made clear that they need to understand more about the target before they go after it, maybe they do some research on it, maybe they ask experts about it, and they can get some of the information from that. Maybe they can make some checks during the fight. There's a lot of ways that we could sort of make this a bit more of a puzzle that they can kind of unravel. But we're going to assume for our purposes, we're going to assume that they have the necessary information and just figure out how the actual gameplay works once they know that. Not because it's unimportant, just because we need to we're going to focus on the mechanics design and what the implications of those designs are. But to take a moment and just notice, like, look at how different the design process is when we have this stuff in place. For instance, you've probably had ideas where you're like, well, that probably doesn't work for this, because it wouldn't be like, for example, it wouldn't be cooperative. It sometimes is very clear that like I have an idea, but it wouldn't be cooperative. That's a great example of what I'm always talking about with objectivity in design. That's objectivity. We're trying to make this gameplay cooperative. We can make suggestions that are cooperative, and we can make suggestions that are obviously not cooperative. But that's a good example. This is why process is so important. Because if you have good process, you can like answer questions like that. That's just an aside, though. So let's go back to this creature. Let's think about it for a second. Let's take the scorpion as a baseline for the stat block. It probably won't end up being a scorpion thematically, but we'll use the scorpion stat block for now. But we're going to give it this ability, right? It can fly. It has a fly speed of whatever, 40 feet. And it has this mechanic that we laid out. It has the 2 wings. The wings have HP, and it regenerates the HP at the top of each of its rounds, each of its turns. Okay, now we need the scorpion to be a threat in the air, right? Otherwise, it just flies around ineffectually. But we also need it to have something that makes sure that players don't get just bored. So, for example, in that Cactid encounter, there was a lot of missing, right? Just a lot of missed attacks. So imagine we took this flying scorpion, but the design entirely hinged on this idea that you're hitting the wings and it comes down. What if you go 3 or 4 rounds and nobody hits the wings? You just roll low and keep missing.
That's lame.
Yeah,
Try and take a different approach.
Our whole idea falls apart in that situation, right? So how do we want to deal with that?
You could make it so it requires lower.
There are basically 2 paths we can take. One, we can completely rethink the whole design. But if we like how the design is shaping up so far, we might be able to just make some small tweaks to shift and avoid that problem. But it's something to keep in back of your mind. Like, maybe this design just doesn't work. Let's see if we can make it work. But it's possible that we might come into the situation where it's like, there's just no way to really make this work. Let's start from scratch from the beginning.
I do have one thing I want to ask. Like mechanics where you have to like, one person has to push the button at the exact same time as somebody else. Is that another type of mechanic that could work? Or
well, it's definitely a co-op mechanic. In fact, it's similar to this, except instead of press the button, it's shoot an arrow, right? It's sort of similar. And instead of at the same time, it's just over the course of 1 round. So it's kind of simplified. Okay. Let's implement this procedure somewhat more properly. Because we have the mechanic kind of designed up to this point. There is an issue that if everybody misses, the gameplay gets there's an issue there. We know that that's going to cause an issue. But we should probably playtest what we've got so far, because we don't want to go down a whole train of thought and design 50 things to cover 50 holes that we found theoretically, only to realize that the initial concept doesn't really work that well when we actually put it into practice, which happens all the time. So let's just stop and playtest it real quick.
Okay.
Let's use the same initiative because it's easy. Let's just pull this guy back. Let's say, let me put a quick...
I'm back to 12 points. I'm up again.
Yeah, put your hit points
I guess just...
I'm alive.
Let's assume this thing is currently flying. And it's 40 feet in the air.
I cannot reach that. I'm jumping though.
It's 40 feet in the air. And this is just the giant scorpion, except we've added 2 mechanics. One, we're going to add, just for the sake of simplicity in this case, we're going to add vulnerability to melee attacks, which means it takes double damage from melee attacks. And we're going to add the wing mechanic that we talked about.
Okay.
Round 1, turn 1, Keaton, go.
I try and shoot it on its wing
What's the
to
range
bring
on
it
your
down.
weapon?
Let me check. So I was trying to find that earlier of how, like, what the range on the longbow is. But
Longbow is like 80. 150, 600. What that is, so there's two numbers. The first number is its effective range, and its second number is its maximum range. So if it's within 150 feet, everything is normal. If it's between 160
Okay,
and
so-
600 feet, you can still attack it, but at disadvantage. And if it's more than 600 feet, you can't reach it at all. But it's fully
So,
40 feet in
okay.
the air, so it definitely is in range of a longbow from where you are.
So I will use my longbow to shoot at its wing, at its left wing.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
make
at its right wing, because since I'm like looking directly at it, I'm gonna shoot at its right wing. I mean, my bad.
Sure, go ahead.
What is that static in the background? Do you guys hear that?
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
what that is. Somebody's
Where's
got
that
a-
from?
13.
13 hits. 13 hits.
So I would do the +2 with the 1d8.
Oh my lord.
5 damage. Okay, its right wing seems to buckle when it's hit by the arrow, and it starts desperately trying to pull the arrow out somehow. I don't know.
Okay,
the
question.
Theme of this
Uh,
creature is not very clear at the moment.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, just a playtest.
That's why we're testing it.
Question: Is
If-
this side left wing or is this side
It's
left wing?
It's right wing.
The first one
relative
you
to
did
itself.
was right wing.
well, I meant
And
right. Right.
its
It
right
would be
wing is
facing
like
us, so
looking kind of crippled.
But
So
it's still
Trying to pull
airborne.
the arrow
But
right?
still-
out, but it's still airborne.
Okay.
It's
I'm also gonna
going
use my
to
movement to also try and go
yeah,
up
go ahead
real
and move.
quick.
You can move.
I'm gonna try and like climb up the thing again, just so I have a better range.
Okay, yeah, make an athletics check.
Movie. Oh. 20 +3. 10. Nope.
Yeah, that's probably not going to do it. All right. On the scorpion's turn, as it tries to pull, first of all, on the top of its turn, it successfully pulls the arrow out of its wing, and it seems to stabilize, still in the air at 40 feet. It circles a bit, but stays more or less in the same spot. It's going to use its action to shoot what seems to be like a glob of poison at you. Seemingly quite angry that you just shot its wing. I need you to make a dexterity save.
Who's it attacking?
question:
that
Does
would
damaging
be-
its wings count as its regular HP as well, or no?
I'm not running it that way currently. I'm running it as a separate
Okay.
entity.
Okay,
what
so
what
separate entity,
what would
okay.
I roll?
A
It would
dexterity
just be
save
would be a
is
1d1.
it's a d20 plus your dexterity modifier plus your proficiency bonus if
Okay.
you are proficient in dexterity saving throws.
Okay, so it would be a +4 then.
Yeah.
1, 3, oops. +4. 17.
17 is enough. Okay. You succeed. You take half damage from its attack, which is 2. So you take 2 poison damage. That's it.
Okay.
And that is
Okay.
its turn.
So
So I have 9 hit points left.
I think it's my go now.
Nope, that'll be
Charles
me.
is up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
And-
Charles.
You go last.
I'm gonna move closer, so like maybe right here. Then I'm gonna throw my javelin. Whatever javelin is.
Okay.
Well, I gotta roll 1d20 first, actually.
Yeah, it's still an attack roll.
Roll
It's a
one-
dexterity. Javelins are dexterity, I think, not strength.
Oh,
Or,
so
actually, they're thrown. I think those
It
are.
would be
Javelins actually have an effective range of 30 feet. So you would
Oh,
have to make this attack at disadvantage.
crap.
Oh,
It
he's
is,
40
however,
feet in the
an
air.
attack
he's
roll.
40. Yeah, he's 40 feet in the air. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I got 19, and then one more time. 1d20.
Yeah,
Oh, 20.
19 plus that'll hit. 19 will hit.
Wow.
Oh, sweet. All right,
Stop
and
a
then
second. Stop a second, because this whole thing is about thinking about player decisions with respect to the mechanic we've designed, right? So you roll up and like, well, I have range attacks, I have javelins, but he's out of range of them. You have to roll a disadvantage because he's out of the effective range.
Yep.
So there's a decision to be made here, because you have other people who are going to go before the scorpion goes.
Mm-hmm.
So you could wait. Like you could use what's called the held action. If you use what's called the held action, you could, for example, walk under where the scorpion is and hold your action. When you use a hold action, you specify a trigger, and then if that trigger occurs, you use your reaction to use whatever you held. So you could, for example, walk under the scorpion and say, I'm going to hold my action for if the scorpion lands next to me. And
It's like a
what that
ready
would allow you to
action.
do is, yeah, it's a ready action. So if someone else knocks a scorpion out of the sky and it lands next to you, you then use
Yeah.
your reaction to attack it and then still get your full next turn.
Hmm.
Remember,
Tempting.
we gave this thing weakness to melee.
Melee.
attacks.
Yeah.
But you
True,
could
yeah.
also try to knock it out of the air. But you have disadvantage on the attack. But its ACs for its wings doesn't seem to be that high. So that's an interesting decision to make, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
I
have a
still
few
hold it,
options
right?
here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, okay. I'm still gonna knock it. I'm still gonna javelin.
Yeah. No,
But
yeah.
so what's javelin? What 1d?
It's a d6 plus. I think it's plus
2d6.
strength. I actually don't remember if it's strength or
2d6.
dex. I think it's
It's 2d6. Damn, really?
it's just 1d6. No, javelin is 1d6.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn, 2d6. 1d6 plus.
I think it's strength for javelin.
Okay, if it's strength plus 2. 5.
5, yeah. It cripples one of its wings.
And
Left
then-
wing in this case.
How many movement do I have left? So how many? So one.
You move
2,
2
3.
squares, right? So you have 20 feet left.
So could I move closer? Would that be close enough?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah, you
thinking,
could
yeah, right
move
there.
pretty much right under it, yeah.
So that means both of its wings are crippled, right? Because I shot its
No,
right
no,
wing
because it-
and he
Right,
got
but it
its
recovered
left
at the
wing.
top of its. It recovered at the top of its
Oh
turn,
yeah, that's right.
and then it went.
Forgot about that.
So I'm
So-
guessing you hit this side
Yeah.
It
where the
doesn't
orange
matter.
marker is.
So
It doesn't.
Uh,
It doesn't
is-
matter. It's very clear. One of them is crippled. You could always just
Okay.
attack with the other one.
So it's crippled.
So
Is it knocked down?
No, just one.
No,
just
it's
the one
not.
wing again, because it recovers at the top of its turn.
Okay, I see.
okay, so it hasn't had a turn. It hasn't recovered. Charles crippled one wing. It's my turn now.
Correct.
No.
Okay,
should be
let's.
isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Damn, maybe I could have.
Damn.
We're going
I'm
with our
dead
last
last.
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go up here
Uh,
again.
Okay. Yeah. Athletics check.
Are you doing the same movement?
Yeah. He's probably gonna get it though, to be honest.
24.
Yeah, I
Yes,
knew it.
that's plenty. That's fine.
All right, and I'm gonna move the 10. So right here.
Sure.
Let me just get rid of the arrow real quick. There we go. And now I'm gonna shoot the other wing with my arrow, with my bow, short bow.
Short bow, right? Effective range on a short bow is.
Wait, are you a rogue? So we're rogue in
80.
range?
Yeah, I'm a rogue.
I see. Okay.
Let me double check something.
It says 80 to 320 or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you're 10 feet up, so it's 30 feet up, but it's also 20 feet away from you, so.
That's
think you're
30 distance.
fine.
It should be in my range.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
Short bow
Right,
is range 80.
Having to do some just some estimates here. Technically, I could sit here and this is what the Pythagorean theorem is relevant.
17.
Oh my
does
God.
that hit the? Does that hit?
70 does hit.
The 17. Okay. And
Is it final?
plus
Okay. Oh,
2. Six damage to its other
Okay.
wing.
So with both wings crippled, the creature starts to come spiraling downward. It does manage to abate its descent enough that it doesn't take fall damage, but it does land on the ground next to you, right here. Just same place, but not in the air.
Sweet.
Okay.
okay. I don't think I have any melees, which is unfortunate timing. Let's do acid splash then. Let me just pull up acid splash
Sure.
to make sure everything's good. Sorry, I should have the stuff. I should have my turn locked in, considering how much time it took for me to have it.
Looks
Acid
like target
splash.
has to make a dex save. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, 60 feet. You hurl a bubble of acid, choose one creature within range, or choose two creatures within range that are within 5 feet of each other. A target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 1d6 acid damage. The spell's
I need-
damage increases by. Okay.
I need your spell save DC, which is either
My
10
spell-
or 8. Yeah, all spellcasters would have a specific spell save DC, which is built in. It's a flat value that's built in, and it is, I think it's 8. Let me double check the calculation for that. It's either 8 or
Can
10.
I see
Yeah, all good.
and I just thought of?
What?
Hang on, one thing at a time.
Me and Keaton to try shooting down the wings while the paladin does damage with his melee. And you're doing perfectly fine, David. You can keep using your
Yeah, it's
range
8.
because I know you said you have no melee, so you have no melee.
I don't think I have any. I don't think I have any melees. No, it's all. But I'm gonna use acid splash right now. That's what I'm gonna do.
Sure. So spell
Smart.
save DC is 8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, which is intelligence modifier, plus your proficiency bonus. It's a flat value.
Damn. So it's 4 plus 8 plus my roll.
No,
So it's
yes. Well, no. There's for your it makes a dexterity save against your spell save DC. Your spell save DC is a flat value. It is your intelligence modifier plus your proficiency bonus, but the flat value is just that plus 8, and it's just that forever. So right now it's 12. If you leveled up and got points in intelligence or your proficiency bonus went up, your spell save DC would also increase.
okay.
But it's just
So,
a flat
Question:
value.
that's
Does breath weapons count as an action?
Yes.
Second attack, bonus action, or
breath
whatever.
weapons are actions. Yeah. They're main
Bonus
actions.
actions or no?
No, they're main actions.
Okay, just main actions.
Okay.
It does
So
fail its check though. So go ahead and roll 1d6 for damage for acid splash.
Does it hit? It lands. Okay. Slash. Hold on. Oh my god, dude! No
That is-
way.
Very unfortunate.
Okay, so I tickle him with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then Skeeton's turn.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I'm going to try and get up the cliff again.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'd rather at least have some height, so if he manages to get back up, it's like, not bad.
But if it does fly away, I get like an opportunity attack, right?
Yeah. There is an
Okay.
ability that some enemies have called flyby, which would reduce that, but Ooh, that's
Hey, that does not work
great.
at all. I'm just gonna shoot at him. Okay.
Sure. No, yeah, go ahead.
Mm,
21
21.
hits.
Oh, that's a good hit.
Yeah. 1 plus 2 4. So I do 4
Okay.
damage to him.
4 damage. Done. On the
Scorpion's
scorpion's
turn.
turn, it recovers. Its wings recover, and it will attempt to fly. Actually, it's going to take its attacks first.
Right.
Oh, God.
And there's only one thing in range of it. So it's going to use all 3 attacks on you. The first
you
attack,
gotta love it.
fortunately, misses by a lot. It was a 2, is a 7 total. The second attack is a 16,
It's a hit,
and the third is a 9, which should miss.
not a hit.
So only one attack hits. Okay.
8. So you take 8 bludgeoning.
Okay.
And what else does it also? Oh no, that's it. Just 8 bludgeoning.
I got 4 health. Let's go. Go with
And
that.
then it will after that it will use its movement to fly up another 40 feet and start circling again, which does give you an opportunity attack, which you can take now if you'd like.
Can I specifically target its wings?
Not with an op attack.
Okay. Oh,
You're
I
gonna have
just
to. But also remember, its wings are separate from its main health.
Yeah.
So you could. I'd say yeah. Let's say yes. Let's say you could.
Yeah, okay,
But then you're missing the opportunity to get the melee damage on the main guy.
That's true. Okay. No, because if it ends its turn, then it's my turn again. Then I can attack again.
Well, no, because it's flying up.
Okay, right. Alright,
So you
I'll
wouldn't
just
be able to
target
get the
it.
melee attack.
Yeah, you're right. I'll just target his main attack body then. Alright, well, 1d20. 8 plus something something. 2, I think. Yeah, 2. No.
1d20
Strength
plus-
modifier.
Strength modifier plus proficiency bonus.
So 12. It's not a hit, I think.
12 does not hit. No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Let's stop there at the end of that scorpion's turn. That was an effective playtest. I made a couple of modifications as we went because there were things that just cropped up that we didn't anticipate in the initial design. We just didn't cover them in the initial design, right?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
just had to
Right.
cover them. For example, can you hit his main body while he's during the op attack, or can you hit his wing during the op attack? At first, I said no. The reason I changed it was because I thought actually it's more interesting to further the tension, right? Because I wanted to make it a decision, an interesting decision to make. So by being able to hit both, you kind of have well, do I want to increase the chances that we get it down quickly? Because it's an op attack, so I'll have another turn. Like maybe that makes more sense. Or does it make more sense to just like get the damage out? There's a decision. It's like an interesting decision to make. And the same thing as before with like a lot, basically just all of the rounds had just like more stuff going on with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's just more stuff happening, and there were things even in that tragic acid splash turn. There was still that thought of like, man, if I had a melee option, that would be really handy. I wish I had like a melee attack option. Technically, you could use your quarterstaff, but it also means that one way that you can do that is. Like later you can take their wizard gets spells later that you can do. There's even a melee attack cantrip that you can take. Like you can take melee spells. Those exist. That there are spells that are like melee spell attacks. So there are things that players can do to like do better in this combat, right?
Right.
There's
Okay.
iterability in their decision making. And that's a huge part of why that last Scorpion combat, even for just that one round, was already way more interesting than the previous 2 combats that we did. Right? It's way
I
more
actually like
interesting.
that a lot. I'll be honest.
And think about how simple the actual design is too. We gave it some wings. We do have to deal with some fiddly bits to make sure that the rules like account for different decisions players can make. Like, can you hit the wings during the op attack? I guess why not? That's probably fine. There's like a couple fiddly things we have to deal with, and those are the kinds of things that you tend to find in playtesting that you miss. But we just it's just a playtest. So who cares? We just fix those after the playtest once we identify them. But it's like already that decision is all the decision making that's happening is just infinitely more interesting. There's also, I also gave it a ranged attack so that it would have something to do while it's flying, but not a terribly
Right.
dangerous one, because the problem with it flying is that you can't hit it, you can't really do much to it. But that way there's something that it's doing. It could have some extra. We could make that attack. We could also do things like make it so that its basic melee attacks are significantly weaker, but its range attack is a bit stronger, so we can like level those things out a little bit.
Balance it out.
Yeah, if it's like that's by the way, that's a decent way to address the problem that we anticipated initially, which is, like what if it just stays in the air? What if everybody just misses a whole bunch and it stays in the air? Well, now it has something that is doing to you that makes the fight not nothing. And then we still need to answer the question of how players actually handle that. But because it's a ranged attack, you can do things like take cover. Cover
Right.
has a rule
Okay.
set in D&D. So the idea.
What if it's a particularly lazy map and there's no cover to see, like a map like this? This one has rocks that we could look at.
Well, then I would if I was designing the encounter, right? If I was designing this, then I would go, hey, it'd be interesting if the scorpion is flying, is if the players had an option to take cover. So we need to find a map that has cover. And we just changed the map, right? We're the designer of the whole encounter. We just changed the map.
Right. I get. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just was asking, is the D&D cover system linked to what the map actually looks like?
Oh no, the map would be like the DM would just figure out what things on the map are what things, and then whenever the player's like, can I, or what might happen in that situation is the player might ask, like, is there anywhere I can find cover from the scorpion? And as a DM, if I was faced with that question and I hadn't thought of that in the design initially, I would be thinking I should probably say yes to that, because that's the most interesting gameplay thing that could happen, because there needs to be iterability in the decision making. So I'm going to say yes to this cover.
They would kind of just have to pull a cover place out of their. They kind of just have to think of one on the spot.
You'd have to figure something out, or on the spot, or if you could also like just alter the map ahead of time. Again, if you did the playtesting, and you realize that in playtesting, which we just did, right? We just did that. We playtested it, and I realized like, oh, we want something that the players can do against the ranged attack. So we should probably give them like cover or something. And then we have room for player creativity, because they might come up with their own things. But the map also has at least one built-in way to deal with that. And maybe there's a way to like get the, you can use that to like, depending on how deep we want to go with this encounter and how deeply we want to do the design. Because if this is kind of a throwaway thing that's not that important in our game, then we might not put in this much effort into it. But if we want this like really cool boss fight, we'd want to include all of these elements. We'd want to make sure that there's a lot of iterability in the decision making, that players have interesting decisions to make round to round, that there are a lot of different scenarios that unfold during the fight, that players always have something they can do. Oh, the scorpion's in the sky shooting like poison at people. Can they find cover? Is there anything else that players might be able to do that would be interesting? And we'd design all that in so that at the end of the day, our scorpion plus map together really facilitate that. And of course, we're still working under the idea that it's a scorpion, but we don't need it to be a scorpion, right? We're not actually married to that idea at all. We could just change it.
We should want to go grab another icon.
Yeah, we could just
for
change
this
the art.
example, yeah.
But remember, but also, so this is a useful point to make, I think, is it's also really valuable that we started with a scorpion and said, this is what we're using. We can absolutely change it, but we started with this like confident, we're going to commit to using the scorpion. We can still change it later, but
Mhm.
the idea is committing to the Scorpion, because that way we can just start figuring out what's wrong with the Scorpion as if we're stuck with it. And then we alter it until we go, you know what? The Scorpion makes no sense. This design really works, but the Scorpion no longer makes sense. So we need like a desert bird of some kind. And then how do we make it make
Of
sense?
like a-
that the
yeah.
wings do a thing. Okay, that we could find something like that. And then we can rename it. We can actually still use most of this stat block, but we add the new thing, we make the tweaks, and we rename it, change whatever we need to change to make it thematically make sense. It's probably not a beast anymore. Might still be unaligned. Maybe we change its AC and we can modulate it a bit. If it's still intended for level 1 party, maybe we bring its HP down a little bit. But actually, with the vulnerability to melee damage, maybe its HP at 52, which is really high for level 1, is fine. Let me demonstrate what I mean.
It seemed a little high. Yeah.
Let me demonstrate what I mean. Have the paladin roll damage for an attack as if you would hit it, as if you'd hit the Scorpion. Charles, you're paladin.
yo- You want me to roll?
Yeah, just roll damage as if you'd hit an attack.
Then 20.
No, okay, fine. You'd crit. That's a nat 20. That's a crit. Roll damage, which is
Roll
now
damage.
because it was 2d6. You roll 4d6 on a crit
Okay, roll.
double the dice. plus your strength modifier.
4d6
4d6.
plus 2. Just strength, right? Not the
Yep.
proficiency.
Yeah, just strength. Wow, 14 damage. I mean, that's not bad.
That's
Also,
not
we have it. It has its melee vulnerability, right? So that's actually 28 damage.
Damn.
So 52 might not be that off, actually. So 52 is a
Right.
lot of health, but now what we have now is 52 is like very difficult to achieve if you're just shooting it, but not unachievable. So like maybe you could find some creative way to dodge all of its attacks with cover or whatever, and still somehow just like pepper it out of the sky with small damage just over a long period of time. It's probably better to have that than it is to make it so that it just doesn't take damage while it's flying, right? That'd be kind of lame.
That would be lame.
Sort of cutting off that avenue of attacking it for kind of no reason, especially since doing that has a lot of risk to it. It's simpler, but it has a lot of risk because it has 52 HP. But if you just get it on the ground, this guy can do 28 damage to it in one attack. And you can chunk it. You can just destroy it. 52 might still be a little high, I don't know, but it's feeling better suddenly. Suddenly 52 is a lot closer than maybe it would be if the Scorpion was the same. So this is kind of how game mechanics design generally works. You want to identify what you're trying to accomplish with the mechanic, which doesn't have to be this complicated. This was sort of a more complicated example because we were trying to find a way to take a very simple creature and turn it basically into a boss fight. But notice how small of a change we actually had to make, right? We didn't have to revamp the whole thing or like redesign a whole bunch of nonsense. We didn't have to add 50 abilities. We didn't have to like give players a unique progression tree that works with this boss. We just gave the boss like this interesting little like wing ability. And then some little tweaks around it to kind of make that make sense, so that there's still stuff happening when you fly. It's still kind of fun to fight when it's flying. Then it comes down, and there's like some new interesting decisions to make, and it just makes the fight like a million times more interesting, like a billion times more interesting. So all the way back to the initial question I asked, which was how would you design an encounter, a D&D encounter that's just more interesting? How would you just make a more interesting D&D encounter? Well, from a game mechanics perspective, you would look at the low-level elements of this monster does this. How do the players handle that? And how can we make the players handle it in a different way? And keep in mind also that when we did this, we talked about how players interact with we talked about it from a perspective of how should players respond to the creature. We really talked about how the players should respond to it before we designed the mechanics. Right? We figured out like what would be an interesting thing to do as a player. And there's this like Monster Hunter mechanic. Like, okay, let's play that out in D&D and see what the problems with that are, and then just address them as they arise. And then once we kind of had that, we end up with this system that's actually kind of cool. A little fun.
I also wanted to talk, because when you were asking for us to like probably give ways of indicating on how they can realize what to do, or the best way to like approach maybe taking down the enemy that's like flying or something, is say after like the enemy's attack, something on its wing kind of glows and it indicates the fact that like you can hit that weak point there. And
you can just give it a glowing point.
Yeah, like with as you had mentioned with the kind of taking ideas from Monster Hunter. I mean, another thing to take ideas from Monster Hunter is in Monster Hunter Wilds, they have a wound system where when you create a wound on the monster, it has like your character has like scout flies that go around kind of like indicating that there's something that you can pick up or like check or investigate.
Yeah.
The scout flies would go around and like kind of glow red to indicate that there is a wound on the monster, and it's like in that sense as well, if there's a wound on the enemy's wing or like something happens like after an attack and a weak point is then been revealed, it would glow to indicate that you can hit that and it'll deal a bit more damage.
Another
Right,
way
so
to tell that something's damaged is the way it looks. Like it might look a bit different than how it's supposed to look.
Yeah. Like it's not like exactly like certainly obvious, but it's obvious enough that you can kind of see.
We have two questions to address in that context. One, we have to figure out how to translate that into D&D specifically because it's so non-visual comparatively. And the second one is figuring out how to do that means that we have to ask about how puzzly do we want this encounter to be. And one of the things that dictates how puzzly it should be is, what if they don't figure it out? Like, is this combat encounter still pretty interesting if they don't figure out that mechanic out at all? If not,
like if they
we
just
might make it less puzzly because we really need them to understand that, right? And if it's more puzzly, then we might have elements before like, for example, you could have something like one of these creatures has already been killed somewhere and it's got arrows in each of its wings and then like a big gash on its body.
That's why I asked how much world building are we allowed to give to this fight.
You could do stuff like that. Oh, and then you just modulate things like that, like how likely do we want it for the players to understand this? Because we could make it very likely. We could just say, like, as a DM, if you're designing a thing, you could make a note of like, when the players enter this area, read this text. That's a normal thing in D&D adventures, like the little tiny blurb of text that they specifically ask you to read if you're running the adventure. And if you're designing the adventure and you're saying read this text, you might make sure that when you write the text, it's something like it describes the fragile nature of the wings, like very particularly, or describe how it's like armored all over except for its wings, stuff like that. And then you pull in that Monster Hunter element of visually identifying what seem to be weak points, but in a much more sort of D&D appropriate style because it's narrative rather than purely visual. But you can translate that for sure. Yeah. We didn't worry too much about that in this case because we really were just worried about the mechanic. But if you were creating this encounter, that would definitely be important to establish, like, okay, how do players know this? And how important is it that players know this?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unimportant enough that you can just give the players the fight and let it be a cool thing for them to discover as the fight unfolds. And if they don't discover it, they don't discover it. If the fight is designed in a way that's kind of interesting regardless, then who cares? It can be like a cool extra thing that they discover. But if it's really the core of the fight is them engaging in this way, then we really want to give a lot of clues, a lot of hints, reiterate hints a lot, and we want to make it very, very clear. And we might even be so, it might even, in some cases, you might even find it so important that you just say to the players, like, the wings are fragile enough to be taken out by one arrow, so that it's like really obvious. Because it's just the most important thing is that they just understand the basic mechanics of the fight so that they can interact with them. Sometimes that's fine. If it's really important, if all of the interesting stuff, if what's really fun about this encounter is engaging with this mechanic, then just make it really obvious. It's okay to just make it super obvious sometimes. It doesn't have to be this whole like thing all the time, right? Not every time. It doesn't have to be a whole ordeal every time. But you can. There is also potential there to be like, okay, well, we can turn this into like a puzzle thing. But if you turn it into a puzzle thing, then that means players might not figure it out. And if they might not figure it out, that means you have to design the fight around the possibility that they don't figure it out.
That puzzle thing that you just mentioned is like that one Dark Souls boss called Yorham. You literally have to run past him, then you have a sword which does so much damage to him, but if you don't do that, you do little damage to him. And a lot of people will think you have to actually fight him that way.
It's
not realize
it's basically as like what people have mentioned before. It's like it's a gimmick boss is what it is. You can make like a gimmick boss.
You can also do Siegfried's quest, and Siegfried just uses that weapon and destroys him.
Yeah.
I know you said I know you said death in Dungeons and Dragons is permanent, but I'm again thinking of this like another video game. I guess it wouldn't be the best, but you could just have the player die until they brute force figure it out. There wouldn't be many hints.
Depending on the game, that might be an option. In D&D, that's not an option. In another game, that might be an option. Dark Souls, there's a lot of iteration over deaths is generally part of the learning process, and that's accounted for. The high level takeaway here is to understand the context for which you're designing and how that affects how you design the thing. That's just a very important thing to consider all the time. The context will change, absolutely. But you never just want to, you never, for example, want to, you would not, for example, take a fight like this and go, well, players will just die until they figure it out. Because that's that doesn't work in D&D at all.
No. Well, you want to
something else out. But that might
restart your 3-week campaign 3 times till you figure it out. That'd be annoying.
Super Meat Boy actually does this in the extreme. Super Meat Boy was quite famous when it came out for really taking this idea of fast iteration to the greatest extent it could, where you die and it's like the next frame you're like at the start of the thing. It's like that, and
you can't even really register you died.
You just keep going. You just keep going, and you just try, and the iterations are so fast that game gets away with being a lot more frustrating than a lot of other games can get away with, because the iteration cycle is just so immediate. That helps a lot.
Right. Okay.
But of course, the iteration cycle in D&D has to be more like the difference is if you have an iteration cycle, people are a lot less inclined to be afraid of trying the thing, and as a result, the gameplay becomes do the thing and trial and error and learn as you go, learn as you fail. Whereas with something like D&D, you have almost the opposite of that, where it's more like, because death is permanent, we have to take each encounter seriously, because if you're dead, you're dead. So we have to take the encounter seriously. So the gameplay has to contort around, the design has to account for this idea that players are going to be very cautious, and they're going to want to get as much information as they can before they do a thing, generally speaking. There's a lot more to that than that, because that's not like inherently the case. Some players will just go, but of course, if a player who just rushes headlong in immediately dies to something that they could easily have prevented, if it's clear that they could have easily prevented that, then they learn very quickly that they can't run headlong into things.
Sometimes you just get bad. Sometimes you really do just got to pull out the get good, I think.
Yeah, well, I've had this situation happen before. In fact, I have a group that I've been running for like 5 years now. And in the very first campaign I ran for them, you could tell that they weren't used to the way I run games, because the first thing that happened was there was like an abandoned building of some kind. It's been a long time. I don't remember the details. But there's an abandoned building of some kind that some bandits had clearly been holed up in. And it was unclear whether the bandits were in the building or not. So they entered, but rather than exercise any sort of caution, they just started walking forward. And for whatever reason, the bard was at the front of the group. And when the bandit barbarian broke out of the back room and started attacking them, he just one-shot her. She just went down immediately. And she didn't even get a turn, and her character died that day. Just all the way died. And I didn't really feel bad because I knew that the feedback for that was very clear. And one of the reasons I knew that was because as soon as that ended, they were like, oh, we really didn't scout that building at all, did we? And indeed they had not. And it was unclear. It's not as if it made it seem, so for example, if it felt to them as if the bandits weren't there, if they felt that it had been communicated or implied that the building was completely empty, that could be a really bad gameplay moment that would have been a big screw up on my part. But just by making it very clear, it's like there might be bandits here, you don't know. Then they go in and they're just like in there. They knew it was a possibility and they just went in anyway. So they learned from that to have caution. So you can use those opportunities to teach players, even with something as significant as a player character death. You can still use it as a really valuable learning opportunity that doesn't feel discouraging to players. Again, if that actionable iteration principle is in play. If it's very, very clear that's like, oh, we should not have done that, obviously, when it happens, they won't really, then there's no real frustration behind it. So even without the, oh, you just respawn and try again, they learn to be more cautious from that encounter. Right? And then that caution, now I can use that caution to design things for the future. I can count on that cautious approach. And because I can count on that cautious approach, I can design other things with that cautious approach in mind and make sure that because it's not just about punishing them for not being cautious. It's also about the next time they exhibit a lot of caution, I make sure that what they're doing in order to like gain information on the encounter that they're thinking about running into gives them something. They get rewarded for looking around first, right? And whatever I reward them for, now they know what not to do and what to do. And that's one of these other principles that I have, right? Always don't just punish, also reward. Don't just punish something, but also reward the opposite. That way players get a really clear sense of what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And they always feel like there's a degree of direction, even if in the context of a game like D&D, everything is very open-ended. Hypothetically, you can do whatever you want. But certain behaviors or certain kinds of decisions, I've been like massaging them over time to create consistent patterns of behavior. And everything you do conditions those patterns of behavior, no matter what. So if you're not aware of how what you're doing conditions patterns of behavior, then you just end up in a situation where your players do random things that you don't understand, but they also blame you for the fact that they do it. Even if they don't consciously think that, they hate it and they just like stop playing the game. They get frustrated because like, how was I supposed to know?
Right.
Kind of feeling. So it's really quite important that you understand what the implications of your designs are with respect to the behavior that you're incentivizing versus discouraging. All the time. Very important. Just like with the friendly fire, if you roll that one and there's friendly fire thing that a lot of people run, what are you discouraging? Rolling an at one? Well, you already didn't want to do that. And there's something you can do about it anyway. And what are you rewarding? What's the corresponding reward? Don't
rolling in. Yeah. What if I could?
Yeah,
Nothing.
you already don't want to do that. So it's just a nothing design. So if that's why you want to be so thoughtful about how the designs work, because okay, what are the players supposed to do about that? Well, actually think that through. Like, ask that question. Think about how the player's supposed to, when you come up with a design, think about how the player's supposed to actually handle that. You might not be wrong. Players might come up with things that you didn't think of, and that's generally fine. The important thing is that you have, it depends on the game. Again, in D&D, it's important that there's at least a couple of solutions that you've laid out, that you've also communicated. And if players go, I don't want to use those solutions, I want to do my own thing, no problem. And they can feel very creative and a high degree of agency from doing that. But the same thing applies in video games, because we just saw the exact same thing happen this morning in Deltarune. Exact same principle, right? I don't want to find a class partner. I want to look at the papers on the desk. And you feel that sense of agency. The same principle
Three cheat
applies.
sheets on there.
These are the kinds
No,
of
I want to look at moving images on a computer because that's
Yeah.
what's happening.
Move aside, teacher. I want to see your images.
So the idea is these principles that we're learning in the context of D&D, but they apply forever. They apply everywhere. No matter what you're making, they apply. They matter. We're using them in D&D because it's easy to make things and playtest them and iterate on them. Look at all the iterations we did on our flying scorpion thing today. I made some iterations in the middle of the combat. That's how easy it is to iterate on things. So that's why we use D&D, because we're applying all of those principles, just like all those principles that are highly applicable everywhere, but we can sort of practice them in a much easier way. You'll find when you start working with Unreal that iteration is much more difficult, because you'll have an idea of a mechanic that you're trying to implement, then you have to learn how to implement it. Then you have to troubleshoot your code because it's not working. Then you finally get it working, but it's not quite right and it doesn't feel right, and you don't quite know why it doesn't feel right. So you start poking around at why it doesn't feel right, and then you have 3 C's you have to worry about. It's a different. There's a lot of barriers to the pure design of, or to the pure element of like what decisions are the player making, which is why we use D&D early on, so that when you start doing stuff in Unreal, you can kind of separate the implementation or the polish stuff from our players making the decisions I want them to make. You should have some practice with that already. In fact, you do now have a little bit, and we'll just get more.
Awesome.
Does that make sense? Thinking about the process that we went through to create this flying scorpion thing, right? And think about how we started and the questions that we asked, and how that shaped the answers we gave, and how we kept always relating it back to like, okay, what do players do about that? How does it feel to deal with that? We wanted it to be cooperative. We set that out. Okay, we wanted it to be cooperative. That means that there's a bunch of stuff that's out the window right away, right? Bunch of stuff we know we can't do because we want it to be cooperative. So we're not going to do any of the stuff that's clearly not cooperative. And I'm sure and what we'll do, I think our assignment today will probably be to create an encounter that is appropriate for a level 2 party. And the 2 things you'll do is you'll level up your characters to 2, which means you'll have to look up how to do that and what that entails. And you'll design a single encounter for a level 2 party, for a party of 3, because you'll run them for each other. Make sure the encounter is quite short, so I'd recommend like 1 or 2 creatures. Don't do a thing where like a bunch of creatures constantly stream in or anything like that. Keep it kind of brief. And
a horde of monsters.
Please no. Make sure that there's like make sure that there's something like this that we did today. You just go through this process. Remember, we started with a map. You don't have to start with a map, but you should start somewhere and then lock that in, and then find something find a map or whatever else that fits that and go, okay, that makes sense. But wait, I want to change this about the monster. Does this map still make sense? Yes or no? And then tweak things as you go, iterate on everything as you go, so that it all becomes one cohesive whole, just like what we did today, where we talked about, I just picked a map kind of at random. Not really at random, but I just found a map that was easy to implement and worked well enough. And now I have some constraints. Desert map. What makes sense on a desert? And we played around with some stuff there.
What makes sense on a... Yeah. I guess in Unreal Engine until you... I know we're not doing Unreal Engine right now, but in Unreal Engine, you'd make the mechanic, you kind of remember in your head what it wants to be, like you probably wouldn't start texturing really doing the final not placeholder models
Well, it depends.
until I guess it does depend.
It
sort
depends
of.
because
It
in your case, you don't have artists. So if I'm working on a game and I'm designing, and so if I'm working on a game and I'm the lead systems designer, I can design a system. And one of the cool things about being a lead systems designer is I can design the system. I'm the first one. I can make whatever I want. I have almost no constraints. I have constraints, but I have like design things that I'm trying to accomplish. But I don't have like assets that are pre-made that I have to figure out. There's no like music that's already done that I have to figure out. I can do whatever I want. And then I can go to artists and go, here are the things that we need. Here are the kinds of environments we need to design. Here are the kinds of sound effects we're going to need. Here's the kinds of music that we're going to need. And then people make it. And that's great. But if you're working in Unreal, you don't get that luxury. So you're going to have to find things from the fab marketplace, which means you're going to have to constantly bend what you're doing around the assets that you can find.
or
There's a lot of assets out
make
there,
them.
but yes, but no. Yes, like in general, hypothetically, you could just make your own assets. And if there are very simple assets to make, then yes. But one, chances are you're not going to be able to make anything higher quality than what you can find on the fab marketplace, because there's actually a lot of good assets out there. And
Right.
two, you're going to be spending, if you do that, you start to spend a lot of time building assets and not a lot of time building, designing, playtesting, iterating.
Okay. Yeah.
And you have very limited time. So you really want to maximize the amount of time you spend building interesting gameplay. And then making it work with the assets that you can find. And then when you can't find the asset that exactly fits your vision, you find an asset that's close, and then you change your vision to fit the asset. That's what that back and forth iteration is like. You change thing A to fit thing B, then you bring in thing C, which fits neither. So which thing can we change the easiest? Well, we need to change the story is often the easiest thing to change because it's just text. This is also why documentation is important in the design process, because if you have a system design, then we start building a prototype of that system and we realize there's a problem, but we haven't built 90% of the system yet. Anything that's not yet built, I can just change the wording of the document. Easy. The iteration is quick. So you want to be iterating. You want to be like, you want to have this idea of like, what is the most efficient thing to iterate on? And usually that's going to be the design, because that's going to be the most malleable thing.
I guess that is a luxury of being a small or even solo team or dev. Is a big project. You want to make a story change and your game's 80% done. Oh well, looks like you're re-recording voice lines and remote and getting motion capture back.
It's a luxury, but it's also a constraint, because it's amazing how little time you suddenly have. Like if you're trying to imagine you're trying to do your own music, your own Foley, your own sound effects, your own art, your own environments, your own everything. You're not taking anything from Unreal. Well, you don't have time to make a game at that point.
Right.
You can make like a space. Maybe it looks pretty. You do all the lighting. Maybe it has some good sound effect, but there's no gameplay because you didn't have time. You can't do it all. So being really efficient with the use of assets is actually very important. And going, okay, here's assets that I can use. In fact, something that you should really be thinking about doing is looking through Fab Marketplace. And we'll talk more about this in Project Ideation on Monday. But looking through Fab Marketplace and understanding and just looking at the assets that are there and going, okay, what are free? Because the other thing is some assets aren't free. There are some assets that are free and some assets that aren't. So you're looking probably mostly at the free assets and going, what do we have available to us? And what can I do with those assets? More than you are going, this is my game idea. How can the world give me my game idea? Because you probably don't get to make your game idea. In fact, you almost never get to make your game idea. You have to work in the industry for a long time before you get to make your game idea, or be willing to spend like 7 years making your game and hope it's not bad. Because if it is, that's 7 years down the drain.
I like how you say 7 years. It's actually like Silksong. Took 7 years for that to come out.
And that was not a solo dev, and they were already very experienced in making very much that exact kind of game, and their engine is already tweaked toward making that exact kind of game.
Yeah, what took so long? What took so long? Like I'm
Well,
not
They,
Also
they
part of
said
it
they were
is
having
it's
fun
have
with
too
it.
much
They wanted to
fun.
add more mechanics and stuff,
it's
but they
polish.
didn't.
So the thing that you have to understand about polish is any given individual point of polish is kind of irrelevant to the end result of your game. It's a very small benefit, but collectively the polish that you do is extremely important and takes an incredible amount of time. So from a production standpoint, if you're laying out a production process, you're like, okay, I have my team, I'm going to lay out the timeline of the project, the budget in terms of the timeline. The first thing that I do is I go, okay, let's say I have a 3-year timeline. The first thing that I do is I take that latter year and a half and I cut it off. Because the latter year and a half is for polish, bug fixes, and playtesting and tweaking. The last 50% is polish and bug fixes. The first 50% is getting your game feature complete. And that means every system is implemented, all of the mechanics are done, everything works, and most of the areas are not just designed, but built and tested and working. All of it. You might be able to expand out if your process is really, really well refined. You might be able to continue building like levels or something for a little bit longer. Like the content locks are going to sort of stagger a bit. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb is that the second half of your project is for polish and bug fixes, which for you means by the end of term 2, you have a feature complete product. And then in term 3, you polish and bug fix. So the reason something like Silksong takes 7 years is because they actually built the game in 3.5 years.
And you're telling me they spent 4 years just fixing bugs. Not only fixing bugs.
Polishing takes a very long time. It takes a long time. Because think about it, like every little thing that happens.
And you can't forget, it's only 3 of them. It's only 3 of them that are working on the game.
And you have to keep in mind that, like, imagine think about all the things in a game like that you don't think about. You're running along and the grass, as you walk through the grass, somebody notices that as you walk through a bit of grass in the foreground, it doesn't react to you running through. And that feels a little bit weird. It makes the environment feel static. So somebody has to make the grass respond a little bit to when you move, right?
It's
so
also like Deltarune.
That's one layer of polish.
It's also like Deltarune. It's one guy working on it, I believe.
But then think about all the abilities in Silksong. Oh, you've got your dash. So does the grass move differently on the dash? It should. It should whoosh further and have a whole thing that like some of the blades like fly out or something like that, right? When you dash through to really give you that like sense of feedback from the dash. What if you do like a down attack on the grass? It should ploof out like that. So now we have 3 different things that we want that grass asset to do. We need to code the behavior, and we need to create those assets and the animations for that grass asset, right? Just that grass asset that we made and put in the game now takes like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times longer than if we had left it to be just a static asset. It takes 10 times longer to make that now because you have to do all the animations. We also have to add sound effects to that so that it doesn't look weird when it happens. And we have to design.
That just sounds like it just sounds like a nightmare. Maybe this was the wrong. No, I'm kidding. But that does sound.
But
insane.
how much you can polish a game is heavily determined by the budget and the time that you have. And generally speaking, the approach to budget is the more you can do, the better. But you have to have a limit because you could just do little tweaks like that forever. And so when they say, oh, we were just having so much fun designing the game, what that suggests to me is I envision Team Cherry like having a great time thinking about all those little things that they could do, right? Like, hey, when we created this platform and it moves down and it all works fine, and we even have feedback for moving the platform and it works just fine, but it's this big, like, the environment has it, because of the environment's in, it's this like big constructed metal thing. It looks like heavy iron. Let's make it so that there's like gears behind it. I don't know if this is in the game or not. I'm just giving a random example. But let's say
something that sounds like in Hollow Knight.
Yeah, let's say there are gears behind it, and when you jump on it, the gears start to turn, but they're like, the first time you use it, it's like rusted closed, so it has this like creak, and then it starts going, so that it feels like
that does happen in Hollow Knight.
So that it feels like this really old, unused platform that feels like it has a lot of weight behind it. It feels like there's a lot of like it was made like a long time ago and just has been unused for so long. You don't need that. Strictly speaking, you don't need that in your game, right? Feature complete would not include that change. Feature complete is you jump on the thing, you hit the thing, and then it goes down. Done.
Beautiful,
The
yeah.
platform works. But if you really want to get into it, you want to have this like animation, and then when the platform starts, it doesn't just go, right? It has to go. Now we have to design all the timings of the animations at the start and at the finish, and have this acceleration, and then the max speed, and then the acceleration at the end to go back to the stopping point. How does it like lurch into place versus lurching out of, like those? It's amazing how much stuff like that stacks up, but doing them will make your game like it's really the thing that takes a game from good to great. Lots and lots of little polished things like that, and they're kind of the most fun things. Once you've got the game like kind of on lockdown, feature complete is done, you think designing features and systems is the most fun part, but that's mostly stress and grueling work of playtesting and why isn't it working? Oh my god, why does nothing work? Why is everything broken? How come no one's doing the thing I want them to do? Why do players do this? This makes no sense. Players figured out some optimal strategy that completely undermines the entire gameplay that I designed. How do I fix this without making it seem like I'm just like stopping them from doing a thing they want to do? I have to like completely retool the whole thing. It's so stressful. But polish is like, hey, we can make the thing do a cool thing. That'd be fun. That's like fun. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're doing. If they're talking about how it's.
You know, it's
so
funny.
fun
They
to
really
play.
wanted to add more mechanics to the game, which I find hilarious. They're like, we didn't have
Yeah.
we were having so much fun. We wanted to add more mechanics, but we also need to release the game.
Yeah, that'll always happen. If anybody's ever heard the phrase "kill your darlings" or "kill your babies," sometimes people call it. Yeah.
I never heard that phrase.
I think on the very first day, who said that they had to kill features because it just got too much eventually.
That's got to be Gregory, right?
No,
I think so,
no,
yeah. I'm
someone
sure
someone said that just now. I don't know any people's voices yet.
Oh,
Um.
it's probably me then. I don't remember that though.
Anyway,
this man right here.
Oh,
weird. Thank you. Weird side thing. On the first day I said I didn't think the newer Steel FNAF games were that good. And I watched an interview with one of the devs and they said their favorite thing is feature creep. They just keep adding things like, oh, we had a developer or we had our artist, we told them make a 2-story building and that's the setting of this place. And they came back with a 6-story building. They said, yeah, let's do it. And they didn't change but we're still making this in 2 years or 3 years. And that's why everything just feels like a walking simulator, because I think what happened is they made a really cool map and then realized they had to put a game in it. And
this is also why I always tell people when I talk about Expedition 33, like I can't wait to see what they come up with next. But I feel like 33 is like, it's okay, it's a solid little game. But there's a lot of issues with it that people seem to be overlooking. Feature creep was a huge problem in that game. They seemed to just add every idea that they had, and it's not to the game's benefit.
I think,
which is why I'm looking forward to the next one, because if that team does a small, really focused thing and they like show a proper amount of restraint, they're going to make something that is as good as people are saying Expedition 33 is.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I don't want to keep bitching about this game. I know obviously a Switch version of a PC game is going to be smaller because the textures are probably lower res and models are probably lower res as well. The PC version I think was 80 or almost 100 gigabytes, and the Switch version was about 8. So I don't know how you cut.
Well, some of that is condensing textures. There's a lot of optimization is a whole thing. I don't touch optimization. That's like a deep back end programmer only realm. But there's a lot of Unreal, for example. When you're working Unreal, you can get a lot of creep in the a lot of bloat, because if you're just like, I'm gonna bring, here's an example when you're doing Unreal, something that people do a lot. They bring in like a texture pack or like an asset pack for an environment, And they're high-res textures, and it's a bunch of assets that you can build an environment out of. And they build their environment, but they leave the texture pack in. One simple thing that you can do for optimization purposes is you design your space and then you delete every unused asset. Like, you don't want unused assets sitting around in your files. Those add up really fast. But optimization is it's a whole can of worms. You'll be dealing with optimization stuff more with like Victor and Gregory and the Unreal specialists. Not really where I am.
Okay. Yeah.
We will be working on design and art and sound. Gregory does sound a little bit too. But like design and art and sound and you'll be doing UI with Naomi when that starts. But we'll be doing a lot of and composition with Colin, which is also artistic and lighting. But we'll do a lot of design and art, and I do writing also. I can do a writer.
Okay.
We'll touch on stuff like that, but for now we're doing D&D, and for today, level up to level 2. Look up what that entails. Change.
When will we pick this up again?
This level up to level 2, and then create one level 2 appropriate encounter, and we'll run those next Friday. Is that right?
Next game. Yeah, when is the next game mechanic?
Next game mechanics. I'm not quite used to the schedule yet. Game history is Friday. Okay, so that means it's on. Oh, that means it's on Monday. Yeah, game mechanics is Monday afternoon.